Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brian with Games Under Pressure, bringing you a little something different today. Typically, I like to look at all the newest releases and give you 4K videos, give you impressions videos, give you reviews. But what happens when I don't really know a lot about the game that I'm talking about? Well, that is the situation that I find myself in today with Destiny. Now, if you don't know, Destiny just released basically the version 2.0 of that game, and it brings a lot of changes in sort of advance of the Taken King, which comes out next week, Tuesday, I believe. And I want to cover these games. I really do. But if I don't know what I'm talking about, it makes it a little bit difficult. So today I brought in sort of the resident Destiny expert, and he just so happens to be my cousin, Jay the John Manguita. How's it going, Jay?
It's going pretty well today.
Good. So, what I want to do is just basically have a discussion with you and talk about everything that is new in Destiny ahead of the Taken King. And then maybe next week we can have another Destiny discussion talking about just the changes that we've seen, the changes that people who are diehards of the game like you are can expect to see, changes that people who are new to the game can expect to encounter.
Sure.
So first of all, tell me what this is. What is 2.0 of Destiny?
2.0 is the massive retooling of pretty much everything in Destiny. The systems, the menu, weapon damage, the amount of damage you take, the light levels. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's a very nebulous question.
Okay, so here's my history with Destiny, okay? I bought it when it first came out. I got like the Ghost Edition, with the little Dinklebot in there and everything. And I played it. I got to level 20. And to be totally honest, I didn't really like it too much. I stopped playing. It got a little bit too grindy and repetitious for me. It wasn't what I personally came to expect from a Bungie game. And, your mileage will vary. You love it. How many hours have you put in?
About 800.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that is ridiculous. But you know what? You like the game much more than I do. And so let's take this from two different perspectives. Let's take it from the Destiny fan who has been around since day one, like you have, who has played a ridiculous, just soul-crushing 800 hours of this game. What is different for you on a day-to-day basis here?
Okay, well, first and foremost, the way that everything is handled from the menu is different. The planet overview has been redone. It just looks a little bit different. There's really not that much different in terms of functionality. Going to and from the tower is a big thing. I know a lot of the criticism initially were the loading times.
Yeah, that was something that I encountered quite a bit. I mean, the loading times, it was occasionally like, 25 seconds, 20 seconds? Pretty long.
Yeah, now in terms of doing bounties, for instance, you can carry up to 16 bounties, and you can turn those bounties in from orbit. You don't have to sit at the loading screen.
So you don't have to go to and from the tower to turn these things in?
No longer. You don't have to do that. They've retooled the whole way that your light works, whereas before it was a little bit difficult to understand. Once you got to 20, you had to find gear that had a light stat on it and then equip it to up your level further. With House of Wolves, the max light level you could have was level 34.
Okay.
So
because the light system to me was always part of the nebulous part of that game. I never really understood the light system. I knew that it had to do with getting new weapons and finding more powerful weapons. But to me, that light system was always a little bit strange. I could never really wrap my head around it. And maybe that's just sort of because I'm an idiot. And that's, that's totally fine. But it was always just a little bit confusing to me. It was a really different way to do a common thing in a video game. So what is this new light system?
Basically, your light system is determined by your attack and your defensive stats.
Okay.
Basically, you get to level 40 by acquiring experience like any other MMO RPG.
So 40 is the new level.
40 is going to be the new cap next week on the 15th.
Okay.
And then you get better gear, and that will increase your light level. Now, Year 2 gear is going to be vastly superior to Year 1 gear with the way they've retooled it, which for me is a very very mixed bag.
Because you have spent 800 hours collecting like every single weapon, right? Leveling up every single weapon.
Yep, I have every single exotic weapon currently in the game maxed out.
Okay, that's even crazier. So what does that mean for somebody like you who has completely like forgone life to play this game?
Well, basically now what you do is whenever you find, in this particular instance, an exotic weapon, you unlock the blueprint for that weapon. Now, there are kiosks set up in the tower. They look like gigantic iPhones attached to the various parts of the tower.
Everybody's copying Apple these days.
No kidding. And you walk up to it, and before, like if you wanted to have a duplicate exotic on another character, if you have more than one character, you would have to find another one of that exotic. Now, what you do is you go up to this kiosk, spend what is, in my opinion, a ridiculous amount of the new legendary marks, which are replacing Vanguard and Crucible marks. You pull that blueprint out, you have that weapon, and then you can upgrade it.
Okay.
So to get the year 2 equivalent of the exotics now, you have to basically pull a year 2 blueprint out of the kiosk, and you have to re-level it, which Bungie previously said that our time should be respected. That's what community manager Deej said. And now it's the start of year 2, and they've now said that it's a new start, so we have to re-level our exotics once again.
Okay, so I'm a little confused, and maybe you can you unlock the blueprint.
Yes.
And then how do you unlock the blueprint first of all?
You just by finding the exotic, you unlock the blueprint for it automatically.
So when you find the blueprint, then you can get unlimited numbers of those guns.
In theory, yes, but to get more of that same weapon, you will have to spend more legendary marks at the kiosk.
And so now, are your weapons that you have leveled up over your 800 hours with this game, are those still valuable? Is there something to those, or is that all for naught?
The exotic weapons, yes. The raid weapons and my other purple legendaries, no. You're going to be getting green and blue weapons at the start of this that are going to have a higher attack stat, because year 1 weapons will be capped out at an attack rating of 170. Everything was retooled, whereas previously the max attack was 365.
Okay, how do you feel about that?
I understand that games of this kind, a lot of people on the Bungie forums, for example, say that gear gets left behind when new expansions come out. That's a standard thing with games of this type, because they're trying to bill it as like this MMORPG that's on the fanboy side, whereas Bungie says that is not what it is. It is a shared world shooter. Maybe I'm just a spoiled console guy, but I don't really feel that I should have to constantly be re-leveling the same gear to keep it relevant.
Is that sort of the general idea? Is your sentiment, which is admittedly a little bit negative on this, is that shared by the community? Are the majority of people a little bit irked by this, or are most people okay with it?
Well, the very loud minority that posts on the Bungie forums, the people that make up probably the top 5% elite, are very thrilled with this, because it's going to force them to go back in the game, play different things, get new weapons and whatnot. But myself, I kind of shudder at the thought of dropping another 800 hours and to get...
Yeah, me too. I feel bad for you.
To get all 3 of my characters, I have 3 max level characters of each class currently. It's a very mixed bag. I feel like I should, because I have a good group that I want run with. That's part of the reason I've played as long as I do.
It's like I guess I view Destiny as sort of like a Diablo 3, right? Diablo 3, the gameplay does after a while get a little bit static because you're sort of doing the same things over and over and over, but it's more of a social experience than many other games, where if you have a group of guys, a group of, raid guys that you play with every single night, it makes it a little bit more palatable to do the same things over and over and over, because at that point the game almost becomes like background noise to your conversations, to goofing around, to joking around. So I understand that part of it for sure.
Yeah, a lot of it is finding a good group to stick with, which focuses on something else in the game. And Bungie has billed this game as being a social game with a teen rating, which is not the easiest thing to accomplish, there still is no matchmaking for endgame activities in the game.
So no raids. You're not going to be able to match up with random people for raids.
No, you still have to go to an external LFG site to do that. I think in-game LFG would be a good idea.
And what does LFG stand for?
Looking for group.
Okay.
And they still haven't done that. They made, for the weekly heroic strike where you can earn strange coins, another one of the millions of different currencies in Destiny to buy stuff, they made matchmaking mandatory for that, which was fine with me because it's kind of a pain to do it on your own, which I can. I solo Nightfalls and weeklies all the time by myself. It just takes forever because if you die, you get kicked back to orbit, which we'll get back to the Nightfalls again later because they're changing those as well.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of it. Bungie's philosophy with this, again, said by community manager Deej, is that finding a group is part of the challenge. This coming from Bungie, who set the bar for multiplayer and matchmaking more than a decade ago with Halo 2. I find the whole thing to be very bizarre in that respect. I'm sure you probably would agree with that.
And so long story short, they're not really doing anything to alleviate those problems with 2.0 or the Taken King?
No, they are not in that respect, no.
Okay. What else? What else can we expect to see?
Okay, first thing that we'll get out of the way is vault space. Vault space has been a problem pretty much since launch with
And this
Destiny.
is one of those things that I hear everybody complaining about,
Yeah.
the vault space. This is not like, oh, this vocal minority wants more vault space. Everybody seems to want more vault space.
Everybody wanted vault space. They added a few more spaces to the vault not too long ago. They said it was a short-term fix. Luke Smith said that they were still running into problems finding more memory. But that aside, with 2.0, they have doubled vault space for armor and weapons.
Okay. You're happy about that?
Very happy about that because I was running out of space too. For just your general items and whatnot, there are kiosks in the tower too that separate that, like for shaders and whatnot. Once you acquire that shader, you can get rid of it, but in the database, it will show that you've gotten it, and if you should ever want it again, you just go to that kiosk and pull it out, which I think is nice. You don't have to keep them in your inventory or in your vault taking up space, which is very good. So, yeah, that's much, much better than it was previously.
Okay.
They've changed a lot of things with the vendors. For instance, the Cryptarch, depending on the rank that you have, will now sell legendary engrams, whereas after rank 18 in the game, level 18, he was pretty much worthless.
Okay.
Let's see here. The Speaker is going to be selling ghost shells. Actually, some of those ghost shells,
Are those to just change the appearance of your ghost? Is that what they are?
they change the appearance, but they also add functionality to your ghost. Like one of the functions on the ghost that I just bought today, because even though I have a legendary ghost that came with the legendary or collector's edition originally,
Yeah.
the Frontier shell, you can infuse that, and we'll get to the infusion in just a little bit. But the Speaker is selling shells for your ghosts now that add to your light level ghosts. Your marks or bonds or cloaks, depending on what class you have, add to your light level now because they add to your defense.
Okay.
And they have different perks as well. Like the ghost shell that I have, it makes it easier to find Spirit Bloom on Venus by highlighting it so that you can have an easier time farming material if you need to.
Okay.
So, yes, they actually.
So there is some utility to them. It's not just.
Finally, it's not just kind of a useless cosmetic and to say, hey, I just spent like $150 on the crazy Uber edition. Look at my red ghost.
Sure. Okay. What else can we expect?
Okay. New weapons from all the vendors.
All right.
What else?
Are these are the new weapons at the vendors ahead of the Taken King launch next week, or are they just with this patch?
They are going to launch with the Taken King next week.
Okay.
But you can get somewhat of an idea for this by looking at Banshee. The gunsmith now has reputation. You check out these prototype weapons that he has in his inventory. You complete certain tasks with them, and then you can turn them in, and you earn rep over time. If you earn enough rep, you can order a weapon to be delivered on Wednesdays, like you want a Suros pulse rifle.
Okay.
Banshee will order that, and then on Wednesday you go and you'll pick up a Suros pulse rifle with random perks.
This Wednesday or like every single Wednesday?
Every single Wednesday when you get them to enough rep.
That sounds to me Like, that's Bungie's way of saying, hey, come back to our game every week.
Well,
Sort of this delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification, yes, but they, well, that's kind of what they've done since the beginning. The grinding, like you said, once you got to level 20, was you saw this massive uphill battle with grinding and whatnot, and it just turned you off completely.
Yeah, so that's something that I'm not really a big grinder. That's why some RPGs I like, some I don't. MMOs, I'm sort of mixed on. I just don't like the grind, the dozens and dozens, in your case, hundreds of hours that you spent just trying to get, like basically stats. I mean, that's what they are, guns and stats.
Pretty much, but 2.0 is tailored, it would seem, to get back a lot of the players that they lost. Now, some people would say that Destiny's online community, the number of people that play, is very healthy indeed. I'm not so sure. There are over 20 million registered users now, and they say that millions of people log in every day to play a minimum of 3 hours, but how many millions is that? Is that 2 million, 3 million? If there are over 20 million registered users, that's a massive amount of players that don't play the game every day.
Sure.
So what they're doing with this is they want to get people like you who put the game down, they want to get them back.
So how are they getting me back? I got to level 20, I think it was, or maybe even like 22 or something, and I stopped the game. I just like wholesale stopped the game. If they're trying to get me back into it, what are they trying to do to call out to people like me?
They're making it easier to acquire things for people such as yourself, whereas before it was getting legendaries was very difficult. You were still, the last time you played, I think, was still pre-patch Cryptarch, where purples could decrypt into greens and blues.
Yeah, that was annoying as shit. Because that happened to me every single time.
Yep. So they've gotten rid of that. Legendaries decode into legendaries. There are going to be specific legendaries that drop from the Vanguard playlists and Crucible, like there are now, that have a higher chance of dropping. As far as the grind goes, there's still a grind, but they have made it substantially easier.
So let me back up a little bit. So you said there are going to be a higher level of drops from the Vanguard Crucible. Is that the multiplayer?
Vanguard is the Strike playlist that you can do. You're familiar with the Strike playlist because you were running Sepix Prime constantly.
Sure.
And the Crucible, the multiplayer, has its own specific legendaries that you can only get as random drops in the Crucible.
Okay.
Which it was a lot nicer to finally get those rather than just be rewarded with a couple of marks if you lost and, like, too bad, on to the next game.
Sure. Okay. What else? I mean, so somebody who has been a lapsed Destiny player, what else can I expect?
Okay, so they've made the grind easier. Like before, for example, every upgrade node required like 25 of a specific item to unlock that node on the upgrade tree for the weapon.
Okay.
They've removed the damage upgrade nodes. They did that with House of Wolves, so that you just have like the perks. And now, so they got rid of like a third of the experience necessary to upgrade everything. And you only need like 5 of whatever, like 5 weapon parts, 5 spin metal, instead of 25.
Okay, so that part is a little bit more friendly.
Yeah, and if you had enough marks, you could also just purchase materials from the appropriate Crucible or Vanguard vendor.
And how do you get marks?
You get marks by playing in the Crucible, and by doing Vanguard strikes. You get marks by participating in public events or just things like that. The weekly, you earn marks like that. Currently, the mark cap is 200 for the Vanguard marks, 200 for the Crucible marks. But again, those are being consolidated into one currency, the legendary marks, that you'll be able to earn nonstop up to 200. You can spend them and then you can earn more.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about, like, do I have to do Crucible? Do I have to do whatever? Because everything you do will earn you marks in this respect. Well, not everything. I mean, obviously certain activities will yield marks, others will not, but which has been the case all along. It just, just whatever you do will just earn you this one currency rather than multiple currencies that you can then spend on what you want to spend on.
Okay.
Earning reputation has been made easier. You pledge your allegiance to whatever faction, and you have that faction for a week, and you earn reputation. It's put towards your faction and towards like Vanguard or Crucible. You don't have to choose any longer, which is good, so that you'll rank up faster than you did previously.
Okay.
they've reworked the packages that you earn. You didn't play long enough, I believe, to get to the point where you were just ranking up the factions nonstop. No, because that's a major grind. Anyway, when you get to a certain point, you rank up a faction, rank 3 and higher, you get a reward package. And the reward package most of the time is pretty shitty.
Okay.
Like you'll get a Mote of Light, a Strange Coin.
Everything I got in Destiny was shitty.
Yeah.
Like I never got anything good. So.
No, you didn't. You had terrible luck. Like a Mote of Light, a Strange Coin, and like 200 Glimmer. Now, on one of their recent Twitch reveals, they spoke with the guy that was in charge of the programming for that. And he's like, I'm sorry, we're going to make that more rewarding. You're going to have like a guaranteed item from that faction every time you level up, I believe is what he said.
Okay.
So that's going to be much better. You're not going to spend all this time doing bounties and whatnot to get like the 2,500 rep needed, 25, 2,000. It's gotten to the point where I don't even look anymore.
Sure.
Because it all just factors in when I rank up. It doesn't really matter too much as far as that goes. But so they've made that a lot more friendly for players also too. Just like simplifying the light system because according to their metrics, Bungie loves their numbers. They keep track of everything. A lot of people left when they hit rank 20 or level 20 and they
So a lot of people are like me. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Yes, a lot of people did that. Like if you look at the trophies, for example, on the PlayStation 4, 2/3 of the people out there have never completed a raid.
Okay. That's interesting. That's an interesting stat, actually.
Yeah, because you needed to get a lot of high-level gear to participate in a raid. Raid minimum level is 26 for easy Vault of Glass.
Okay.
Well, normal, we call it easy.
So the majority of people have not hit 26 is what you're saying.
Or have not bothered with
a raid.
The raid, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, very.
Because the raiding is what a lot of people say is the best part of Destiny.
Yes, it's they pretty much just drop you in there and you have to figure out the mechanics of each part of the raid on your own with your group. And
or YouTube.
Or YouTube. YouTube helps, but if you want to be one of those day one people that spends the whole day figuring out the raid, like
that's for chumps,
like the group that I run with, then yeah, it's probably it's very well put together. The raid was probably the best part of the original vanilla game. It's just that not a lot of people originally, again, according to the stats, got to the point where they could experience that in its entirety, which is
a shame. I mean, it's a shame.
Which is a shame too, yeah, because it's probably the best part of the game.
Okay. What else? What else is in Destiny 2.0?
2.0, let's see here. Weapon retooling. We touched on that a little bit earlier. All of the weapons have more or less been retooled.
Okay.
Everything. Previously, Bungie had nerfed auto rifles into the ground to the point where they weren't useful at all. Because just, again, according to their metrics, they saw that too many people were using them. And if too many people are using this weapon archetype, it can't be a good thing for the game. So let's just nerf it into oblivion and buff something else.
That's sort of what Bungie has always done, though, right? I remember even reading an interview where their philosophy was, like, every weapon should be equal, and it should be skill that determines kills and not necessarily the weapon. That's why when Halo 2 came out, Bungie was like, hell no, we're not having that pistol in here. We're not having this 3-shot weapon in here.
The pistol that you wreck everybody with still in
I'm
Halo.
really good with the pistol.
Master Chief Collection.
Yes.
What was that screenshot you sent me? Like, you had more than twice the amount of kills.
I'm sure I did. Yeah, I'm ridiculous at that game.
We digress here. But yeah, basically, when Halo 2 came out, they just had the Magnum that was in there was just terrible.
It's like, yeah, you want to kill somebody, it's going to take 155 shots.
Yeah. So, okay, that's pretty much been Bungie's philosophy this whole time. And now with technology, now compared to the way it was back then with the original Xbox, they can do that to their heart's content, and they have been.
Right. I'm sure it's just tweaking a number in some box somewhere.
Yeah. So that's what's going on with auto rifles. Pulse rifles, a lot of you people who ground strikes like I did to get the Hopscotch Pilgrim, which is the name of the pulse rifle, are probably not happy with what Bungie did with it. They nerfed that to there are different tiers. Impact is a stat on a weapon that determines how much damage it does per bullet.
Okay.
Like there are like light pulse rifles, like the pulse rifles you get from the raid, Praetus Timepiece, or Light of the Abyss, where it doesn't do much, but it fires very quickly. Then there are the middle pulse rifles like the All Fate, which is currently available, which fires still pretty quickly but has a lot more impact. And then there are the top pulse rifles that have a ton of impact, but they don't fire very quickly, but they can two-shot people in multiplayer.
Okay.
Hopscotch Pilgrim was, past tense, one of those weapons. Not anymore. It's now along the lines of All Fate with its impact. It's now a rated 16 for the impact versus the old 32.
Okay.
Which I'm sure a lot of people are upset about. But, like, in all fairness, they increased magazine size across the board. So it's more useful all the way around is what they're saying. It still kind of bugs me because I put a lot of time into getting it.
Sure.
So that's what's going on with pulse rifles. Let's see here. Shotguns received a nerf in PvE. They do 45% less damage.
Okay.
After you had left to pursue other games, they buffed shotguns by 100% because nobody was using them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In PvE, so they were much more powerful at close range. Well, they dock that now 45%, so they'd still be quite a bit stronger than they were when you played.
So it's still 55% higher than when I played.
Than when you were used to, but it's a noticeable difference when trying to take down ultras like the Minotaurs on Venus or whatnot.
Now, how do you feel about that? Because with Halo, what happened with me when I was playing with multiplayer campaign, whatever the case is, you get attached to a certain weapon, and your skill with that weapon increases over time.
Exactly.
So when you all of a sudden now have a 45% decrease in the weapon damage, does that cause you to reel a little bit? Are you suddenly, do you feel, are you sort of floundering all of a sudden? How do you feel about that? Because I understand that this is a quote MMO or whatever the case, or whatever Bungie calls it, which is like, the bullshit marketing,
pretty much.
Whatever they call it. It is sort of an MMO, and granted, you see these dips and you see these increases in weapon damage all the time in games like this. Not games that I've played personally, but you see it all the time. That would irritate me a little bit.
It irritates me somewhat because in like your standard MMO, like WoW, your weapons are more or less a stat stick, so to speak. They just reflect like your character, how good your character is at that point in time.
Right.
Whereas in a first-person shooter, your gun has a certain amount of recoil, feels a certain way, reloads a certain way.
That's a good point. Yeah, the weapons do behave. It's not just sitting there clicking on a mouse.
Yeah.
And having this canned animation go back and forth. I mean, it is this very organic feeling aspect to the game.
Yeah, and with House of Wolves, they introduced weapon re-rolling with the gunsmith, where you paid like a mode of light, some weapon parts, and some glimmer, and you could re-roll the perks on it until you got a set of perks that suited your play style. So if you want like a high impact, low recoil pulse rifle, you could get that if you were willing to put in the time with re-rolling and materials. Now, they're getting rid of everything that we had this last year pretty much. Well, it'll still be relevant in regular Crucible because all this damage is standardized. Mm-hmm. But for the end game activities, they're just not going to hold up to even green standard weapons because everything is being retooled to try to push the Taken King.
Okay.
So it has left me reeling somewhat using these weapons that I've used all this time. Now they feel
800 hours.
800 hours. Now they feel different. They changed a lot of the perks, like the perk Field Scout, for example, increased your maximum ammo capacity on something like Vision of Confluence, which is my favorite all-around weapon. That's the scout rifle from the Raid Vault of Glass. Now, they changed it so that it still has maximum ammo capacity, but it doesn't change the magazine size. So instead of 27 rounds, I have 19, which is a noticeable difference. To be perfectly honest, I'm not a fan of what they've done with that. I will try the new weapons before I judge, but so far I'm not very happy with that.
Okay. What else can we expect?
Okay, apart from all of that, there's also going to be, they said in the first act there's going to be 8 new campaign missions.
Okay.
In the story.
In the Taken King.
In the Taken King. There are going to be new strikes. Of course, there's going to be PlayStation exclusive content,
which is always really shitty, right? And from what I understand, I mean, I haven't played it, but I've heard people say it's not really worth it.
Yes and no to whether or not it's shitty. Like the strikes, for example, kind of a mixed bag. A lot of them are just previous areas you go through backwards. Kind of lazy on Bungie's part, I'm not going to lie. But the weapons, on the other hand, like Hawkmoon, have been pretty cool, which Xbox players will finally get to use, which is awesome. But apart from the 8 campaign missions and the strikes, they're introducing 2 new multiplayer modes. One of them is called Rift. Basically, it's like a kind of a strange marriage between Griffball and Capture the Flag. There's a spark of light on the map, and you try to get the spark first, run it to the opposite team's rift, and then slam dunk it into the rift to score. So, and there's also a timer too, so you can't take your time. Once you grab the spark, you have to get it there. It looks kind of cool. It's actually available to play now today. I have not yet done that. I've been going through the...
Damn it, get on it. Make it 804 hours, dude.
Oh, we'll get to that. We will get to that, absolutely. But I will get to the multiplayer soon enough because a lot of the weapon tweaks have been carried over to multiplayer, also with auto rifles being rebuffed and whatnot, so I'd like to try those out.
All right.
The second multiplayer mode is going to be called Mayhem, where pretty much everybody has their super.
That sounds fun to me.
All the time.
That sounds fun.
It looks like absolute chaos. People like Titans slamming the ground. People, Hunters constantly using their golden guns on everybody. Warlocks flinging Nova bombs all willy-nilly. It looks just like...
That's cool.
It looks like absolute chaos.
Awesome.
Which I think is what they had in mind based on the VDocs I've seen.
It's like that, I think they call it Fiesta in Halo, where you just spawn with one completely random weapon.
Oh, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yes,
yeah, like
yes.
you just, I played it the other day. It's in Halo Master Chief Collection. I think it's in like Team Action Sack. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you just like spawn with a rocket launcher. You spawn with, God knows what. It's pretty chaotic and fun.
Yeah, so they're adding 2 new modes there, so that's going to be better.
So that sounds fun.
Yes. They're getting rid of Trials of Osiris for a while. That was basically like their end game hyper competitive multiplayer. A lot of people out there know what I'm talking about, where it's 3-on-3 elimination. When you die, you have to be revived, and there are 5 rounds within a match, and the first team to 5 wins.
That sounds kind of fun.
You feel the pressure when you play.
Oh,
that.
I'm sure. Yeah, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, you get a scorecard. There are you have to get 9 victories to get to the end. The guy that sells it, his name is Brother Vance. He's in the Reef.
So you could play 17 games?
You could.
That's
you
crazy.
You wouldn't get anywhere with that after a certain point unless you wanted to troll people. But if you lose more than 3 matches, you're kicked out and you have to re-enter at the beginning.
I got you.
Start a new card. There are boons you can buy from Brother Vance, like you start the Trials of Osiris with a win already in your pocket. The next win you get will net you 2 victories, or your first loss will be forgiven.
Okay.
If you go flawless, you go to this place called the Lighthouse. I've been there a couple of times.
Who hasn't been to the Lighthouse?
Plenty of people, dude. Plenty of people.
I don't know what you're talking about. I know. This is all like a foreign language to me.
Yeah. So, but again, like for every team that gets to the Lighthouse, if you factor in the boon, there are 7 teams that don't get there.
Okay.
So it's kind of their elite multiplayer endgame, and that's taking a break for a while, probably so that people don't, I would guess, chew through the content too quickly by getting that end level, that end of the game tier weaponry and armor, so they can just go through everything. So it's sad.
So they're spacing it out a little bit.
Yeah, it's sad for the people that loved it and loved doing it, but for people like myself, who, when it comes to PvP, I am a filthy casual with only just a positive KD.
Okay.
Only just. I'm not gonna miss it too much. So that pretty much encompasses a lot of it.
Okay. Are you excited for The Taken King?
Well, I did take off from work to play it.
So that is a yes.
I wanna see what Bungie does with it. I want to see where they go with it, because year one for me has felt, it's
crazy it has been a year, by the way.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's been a year. It's felt like basically a giant beta test this whole year.
So do you blame people like me for not jumping into it in the first year?
No, I don't. Just as I was getting sick of it, that's when I just stumbled across this group that I am with, this super awesome group that I play with, and that's pretty much the reason why I kept playing. But if you don't have that good fortune, the game gets old very, very fast.
Sure.
And no, I don't blame people at all that left. I mean, there were so many awesome games this last year that were released that I completely ignored so that I could keep playing Destiny, much to your disappointment.
I know. I keep trying to get them to play all these other games because there's so much good stuff. Like, you've never played The Last of Us. I'm like just beating you over the head with it. Like, play The Last of Us. Play The Last of Us. But
well, if you look at 800 hours, if you factor in 365 days, that's on average more than 2 hours every day.
yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, that's just absolutely insane. But a lot of changes coming with the Taken King.
Hey, I can't complain though. I mean, like, I've been playing Ark Survival Evolved. I think I have pretty close to 500 hours, and that came out June 2nd.
and that's an early access alpha that you're
Right.
dumping all your time into.
I know, which is probably dumb in the grand scheme of things, but
Pick your poison.
Yeah.
For you, it's Ark. For me, it's been Destiny.
that's true.
So again, back to the whole crux of this. These changes, why are they being made, and what is the goal? The goal for all of these changes is to try to get people like you who left the game back by retooling everything, by trying to make it more accessible, more user-friendly, by adding new content, by restructuring the story a little bit so that you things make more sense. And that's great. That's great that they want to get these players back, or they want to get new players. But for people like myself who have spent all this time, yes, it was time that I enjoyed. I more than got my money's worth out of the game. It's just that after everything is said and done, maybe it's a little immature, but I feel kind of cheated. That it seems like all this year one effort is going to be left behind. Yeah, I'm going to enter year two with a lot of knowledge and a lot of resources that these new players won't have. But I just kind of wish that there had been more of an option to like upgrade maybe some year one guns beyond that point or what have you, because all of that's going to be left behind. Maybe they will eventually if enough people complain. They did that with House of Wolves when they introduced Etheric Light, where you could ascend any year one legendary to the cap for the year.
Okay.
But so I'm not going to be deleting my raid weapons or anything like that. I'm going to hold on to those. Currently, there are no plans to offer basically the WoW equivalent of heroics for the raids. If you're to the point where I am, doing that sort of thing won't really net you anything of use in the Taken King.
Gotcha.
They're just trying to push the new content, which I get. I get that. People who are not purchasing the Taken King are going to be level capped at 34.
Okay.
They will
Are
not,
you level capped right now at 34?
Yeah, because that's the current level cap. But when the Taken King comes out, all the end game material, all the new end game material is going to require level 40.
Okay.
So if you don't buy the Taken King, you will
You
not
basically played everything that is going to be available.
Yeah, you won't be able to do like the weekly on the hardest
Okay.
difficulty or the nightfall.
That's understandable.
Which, being a lot of people feel that they shouldn't be locked out of the content. Bungie is a business; they do need to make money, so they want to push their product.
I understand
a little bit,
that.
which I get, and I understand. I'm purchasing the Taken King. I will have that. I won't have a problem with it. Some people will. That's just the nature of the industry that we're currently in. But yeah, being locked out of the Nightfall is going to piss a lot of people off. Which, by the way, they have nerfed. There's no longer going to be an experience buff. If you completed the Nightfall previously, you got basically a 25% experience buff that was applied to everything you got. Bungie has said that they are nerfing it in the time being because they didn't want people to feel like they had to do that on reset, which is Tuesday. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the week, they had to get this done so that everything they did for the next 6 days got the experience boost. They said that they are going to boost the experience earned from other activities in the meantime to compensate for that, but they are nerfing basically the Nightfall by you're not going to get booted to orbit and have to start over, and you are not going to receive the experience buff. Mm-hmm. Again, this is done because they want to attract a more casual audience back to the game, which they have lost. But in trying to attract a more casual audience back, are they going to piss off a lot of the hardcore players that stayed with them?
And I guess time will tell.
Yeah, through these birthing pains this whole last year.
Right. I guess time will tell. And, maybe that's where we should leave it. It sounds like you're sort of mixed. It's not thumbs up. It's, not thumbs down. It's somewhere right in the middle.
Yeah, I don't really have enough information yet because obviously it's not out, even though the patch for the game functionality is out.
Right.
I haven't gotten my hands on the Taken King yet. I don't know all that it entails, apart from what's been communicated to the community through Bungie. But just very mixed feelings about the weapon rebalancing and everything. I just hate to say goodbye to my year one weapons. I mean, Bungie said that these weapons are supposed to tell a story about what you've been through. People are going to see your weapons and they know what you had to do to acquire them.
Get lucky.
Basically,
it sounds like
RNG,
for most of them.
Sacrifice to RNGesus, as a lot of the fanboys say. But now that story, it seems, is I junked my year one legendaries because the Taken King came out, and that doesn't sit well with me.
Sure. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting. We'll have another discussion next week on Wednesday, a day after the Taken King comes out. I'm sure you'll be playing it at midnight and going through it. You're taking off of work on that Tuesday, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we'll come back next week. We'll talk about your experience with the Taken King, whether or not people should dive into it. And that'll be really interesting. So, Jay, thank you so much for joining me today. It was nice to have you because I don't know what I'm talking about. Like everything that you just said for the last 41 and a half minutes is just completely like a different language to
Another
me.
language. It might as well be Latin.
Swahili. Like pig Latin. Like whatever. It's just nonsense to me. But I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you sharing some of your 800 hours worth of wisdom with us. And here's to another 800 more, I guess.
Oh, God, no. I'm not sure if I want that at this point, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next week for another Destiny discussion. In the meantime, if you would subscribe, that would really help me. I'd really appreciate it. It is going to allow me to keep bringing you videos like this in the future. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.